Okay, so I'll pass on my mic to all of you. So it's a great pleasure to have you here, all four of you. And I think what we will do is just step by step, very quickly, just very, very short introductions of who you are and your company. Brian, over to you.
My name is Brian Mailer. I work for Block One. We're a software developer. From there, we have a CVC that we established and have 5 partnership funds. So I look at investment opportunities across the space using the software we developed called EOS.io.
My name is Bonnie with 500 Startups based in San Francisco. We mostly invest in seed stage around the world. Started back in 2010, portfolios around 2,000 companies plus. Blockchain, we started investing in back in about 2013 with companies like Chain.com, which recently got acquired. And we also do token investments since 2017. We're mostly interested at current time is still in more of the tech-driven fundamentals layers, so layer 1, layer 2 type of solutions, but looking at a lot of implementations actually from our portfolio companies this year, so we're very excited.
Hi, I'm David Seymour, founded a group of venture funds called Wavemaker, managed about $500 million. Got into crypto now and launched a bunch of crypto funds, 3 active ones so far, LA, Seoul, and Australia. And actually invested in 2 groups next to us, Block One and 500, and mostly focused on early stage equity investments in crypto.
Hey guys, my name is Lee. I manage the Huobi Capital, which is the investment arm of Huobi Group. Huobi Group is one of the, I would say, one of the earliest blockchain adapter in this space, starting in 2013. It's also one of the biggest crypto exchange in the world. So we started looking at the crypto space as an investor since 2017, investing mainly at infrastructures protocols and recently dApps. Starting in 2019, we started to look at projects that go sort of beyond blockchain specific verticals that really wanted to apply the technology to certain industry. We can try to work with some of the industry leader to create some of the use cases around the globe. Thank you.
So just to get the audience right here, how many of you are entrepreneurs? Hands up here, just so we see. How many are entrepreneurs? 1, 2, 3. Okay. How many investors? Hands up, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. So let's build on that we basically have a little bit from the entrepreneurial point of view and others investors' point of view. What is the most exciting piece that you look into? What do you invest into right now, in a little bit more in detail, but what is really, really exciting for you? And kind of explain why. So who wants to start? Should we go in a little bit in traditional order? Dave, do you want to kick off there?
Sure. We've always been early stage. We've mostly been equity investors in crypto, or if we did tokens, it was usually equity plus tokens in one check. That's been a good philosophy so far, given where the bear market has taken us. I hate to say it as a VC, like we focus on infrastructure, like everyone focuses on infrastructure. We spent a lot of time in the last year or so in the STO issuance space. We're invested in a lot of the STO exchanges coming out, like Securitize, a lot of the issuance platforms. And we think there is a big future there, though I think it'll be a lot different than the ICO world. I think it's going to be asset backed. It's going to be fewer products.
So why does a company like Securitize, to give an example, why is that exciting? Why do you find that exciting?
Exciting is a strong word in some ways. It's an issuance platform. It's a services business. What's interesting to us is that it's all the group of those companies, Polymath, Securency, Templum, a bunch of others, I think they figured out the compliance side better. I think most of the companies in the space started off on the technology side, and it's not that hard to issue ERC-20 tokens, but to make them globally compliant, where you can focus on only controlling whitelisted wallets, tokens can't move. If your tokens do move and you don't like it, you can delete them and replace them. If you lend your tokens and they don't give them back to you, you can remove counterparty risk. There's a lot of interesting things that I thought Securitize did a particularly good job with. And we're also using them to issue all of our platforms. So we're by far and away their biggest customer. I think we're like half their revenue.
Synergies compliance, that's what I'm hearing, and exciting stuff. Bonnie, on your side, what excites you really a lot now and why?
So 2019, the one area that we are very excited about is privacy, but more of a function. And by privacy, I mean it's currently most of the public blockchains out there they're actually not completely anonymous, so they're pseudonymous. And we're starting to see inroads from different companies looking at, I mean, obviously this last week there's been a lot of talk on this one chain called Grin, which is built upon Nimblewimble. It provides an added layer of privacy. If you think of all the big dreamer and the visions about what we can use blockchain for, all these data transactions, unless you can process data privately on the public chain, it is not possible for many of these things.
So what is this, like Monero, whatever, Zcash 3.0? Like what problem does it solve and what is so exciting about it?
Well, I think back to the data issue, right? A lot of teams we've seen last year came to us about these great ideas of blockchain is going to enable all this kind of data selling by individuals. You're going to own your data, you're going to sell your data. But unless that data can be processed, the value is out of processing the data. But if the data cannot be processed privately on a public chain, then it just defeats the purpose. You still won't be able to truly monetize on your own data. So that's why to us, privacy as a technology, whether the teams coming from three main angles, right? Some teams are looking at how to solve it with advancements in hardware, like SGX. Some teams are looking at how to push forward secure multi-party computations, which is, for us, is kind of the longest shot. And then also some teams are looking at things like zero-knowledge proofs, which we see the implementation. It's just that right now it's not efficient enough.
And where do you feel early adoption in terms of real user case would be on what you just explained on that privacy? Which enterprise, customer, government, whatever, would adopt it first and why?
It would enable, one is payment, right? Things like trade financing, where there are a lot of projects looking at how to bring all these small, medium participants onto the chain and be able to obtain financing. But one of the things is the securitization of the privacy of that data on chain. And that's why I think, right now, every implementation we've seen in the trade financing side is mostly in a closed private chain where they can secure and they can vet all the participants by one central party.
Okay, got it. So we have Dave there, compliance, synergies, interesting for Dave. Bonnie's talking about trade finance, privacy. Brian, over to you. What do you look at and why are you excited about certain areas?
Sure. So our internal fund as well as our partnership funds all look across the spectrum. They look at things including security and privacy and data transmission. But also, like, one of the areas that I'm personally focused on is gaming. There's a very large overlap between blockchain developers that were former gamers and gamers who want to get into blockchain. From there, it's not a hard leap to make from gaming to blockchain. High transactions, high number of users, and want to keep that data secure and also transmit in real time. So the software that we put forth, the EOSIO software, it's used by gamer developers. One of our funds invested in a company called Mythical Games, and from there they're leading the charge. They actually announced, I believe it was yesterday, creating an NFT standard for tokenization of digital assets. And so from there you're able to get into real gameplay, transmitting outside the game. So when
What was the name of the company again?
Mythical Games.
Yeah.
So
go ahead.
led by John Linden. And essentially what we would see is there's a lot of talk of what's going to happen with tokens and the layer 1 and layer 2. I really am pushing the charge, and so is my team and the funds, to get it to the point where on a daily basis the mass user adoption has occurred, where you're using a blockchain app and you may not know that it's blockchain. It's just working, it's secure data, it's doing everything you're hoping it's doing, but you're not aware of it. That's really one of the goals that we're focusing on, is trying to get the mass adoption and the implementation of blockchain software.
And in this particular case that you talk about, is it too early to say that they have traction, or can you mention some kind of traction that they have, in any kind of sense of traction, whatever that would be?
Sure. So Mythical Games, they launched their first game, Blankos. It was about 3 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago they started the announcement. Number of views and the outreach they've had is huge. And also, when I was mentioning that they launched the NFT standard, that was with a couple other major players in the world, where they're trying to set up a larger game space. So they want to tackle those hurdles that are in front of them right now, of how do we format these games, how does transactions going to happen, what's going to happen with NFTs. And so that's all of them. That's John and his team at Mythical Games is doing that. And we're just excited to be part of it and support them.
Do you see any more geographical adoption on that, or is it kind of global immediately?
So that's a nice part about the NFTs and being able to transmit. The process behind it is game players exist all over the world, and that was kind of with the advent or the implementation of the internet, gamers started playing across the world. Instead of having local LAN parties, they started playing worldwide, and that's what we see is also true with gaming. Obviously, different regions have different favoritisms of games, but we definitely see that the gaming portal is worldwide.
Okay. So what is Hobby investing into, and what excites Hobby in general?
Yeah, so like I said, I agree with all the panelists was talking about, and then for me, I think one of the key elements I look at all these target companies is adoption. How do we help the adoption of the of the industry? We've been through this 2017 and 18. There were lots of people came into the industry, and those people, most of these people left in 2019, and it's really, we don't want to see that happen again. So in order to have those adoptions, through investment, we really want to see the real use cases. And in the past, we've been taught enough about like infrastructure and protocol. That was the main theme that we look at in 2018. In fact, going into 2019, we really wanted to, we get exciting about those cases that can really be used by general public. The really killer app, I got asked a lot by the questions, is really, when you started to use the applications, you don't really feel like it's building on top of blockchain. That's really the killer app, regardless what kind of services it's providing.
So give me one concrete example that you're especially excited about.
We are excited about like data processing and payment in particular, especially cross-border payment. We look at this space long enough, and there are lots of applications that being trying to build in the past, but then infrastructure is not there yet. But having the infrastructure started gradually to build up, and then more and more people recognize the utility of crypto, and then there are more use cases coming, sort of showing up in 2019. The cross-border payments and also settlement across enterprises, across financial institutions will be very interesting to us. And
Okay, sorry for pushing it. I want to hear a name and why you're excited about that name and that company.
I think we are reviewing some of the cases at the moment, but we haven't made any bets at the moment.
Yeah. But go ahead, Dave, please. Go.
So one of our companies called Coins.ph just exited like last week. It was a great example of this.
From Philippines, right?
Philippines, yes. So we were the seed led the seed round. The Gojek bought them they closed the price. It was actually 100 and some million. And they had 5.5 million active users in the Philippines, ATM integrations, payroll, convenience stores, all without a debit card. No bank account, no nothing, digital money. You had an EMI license from the government to tokenize pesos. Actually, not a tether. They could actually take pesos, put them on the blockchain, and it remained legal tender, which is really, really phenomenal. And none of their users realized it was crypto. It was all built on Stellar, and then we brought in Ripple. Then now it's all built on Ripple, and as a processing platform. And no user ever knew it. They never saw a private key. They never managed anything. They could buy Bitcoin if they really wanted to or something. They had an exchange baked in also. But it was a great company and a great use case of crypto. That there's really cool things you can do. You don't need to make people use keys.
And if I may say it, a fantastic entrepreneur. The guy
Ron's amazing.
Ron comes there from the US, goes to the Philippines, and I want to do this, right? I think that kind of conviction is great. What do you think about Philippines in terms of regulation? We had a chat yesterday in terms of regulation, and it seems to be something that is adopting quite a lot in Philippines.
Yeah, Philippines is apparently you know it, but for the last year I've said it's the best kept secret in crypto. Like they have the most forward legislation on the planet.
What does that mean?
Just a super. Very forward government. Coins itself. We did this seed round with Coins. I can say this now, it's sold. There's no such thing as a conflict in the Philippines. So the current head of the Treasury and the current head of the SEC were investors in the seed round with us. And that facilitated us getting the EMI license. Still took 3 years to write it. It was in 2014. But because that is there, now other companies are getting it, and just a lot of the rules they put around exchanges, KYC, things like that are super, super forward. Everyone talks about Malta and Taipei. Philippines did it first, 2 years ago.
Okay, we got some insights here. Thanks for that, Dave. I have a question from the audience. I'm going to run out and see where it is. Hey, who typed the question for me? It was somewhere here. Yeah, over there.
Right. So, I'm coming from an investment banking sort of side of view, and I can see here that there's lots of retail platforms. I can buy crypto with 10 different platforms here now. I'm more interested as an investor to get into the actual equity of these companies rather than just into some tokens. Can you give me some suggestions on how I can get that exposure in my portfolio?
Anyone wants
I mean, sure. I mean, it's you know, go ahead, please.
I think the easiest way to get exposure. Hey, hello.
Didn't care about the answer.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to answer your questions. I mean, the easiest solutions to get that is really to invest in our funds. And then that's the easiest way to get the exposure. And two, I think there are, lots of good dev projects going on and all those DevCons. I think there are lots of infrastructures. You go after infrastructures, and there are DApps that build on top of the infrastructures. You can go find those teams. Yeah, and then you get that's rather than buying crypto directly. I guess that's the easiest way to get exposure.
So how many funds?
Easier said. I mean, every company that has a token is selling equity virtually. Not all, but a huge number of them. So if you liked a company's token platform and you thought it made, there's a lot of companies we looked at that didn't make sense when the token value is like 300 million. But now the token values are less, down a lot. And usually you can go to the companies now and buy equity at a, $10, $15 million valuation, even if they have that much in their treasury. So it's just a matter of approaching companies you like.
Outbound, that's what you're saying.
What is it?
Outbound. You call them.
Yeah, we're aggressive.
Okay. All right. Sorry.
I think part of it is also a question for you, right? What is your check size that you're looking at investing? If you're looking at early stage, I would say we run demo days for all our blockchain companies. We welcome outside investors to come and look at the pitches. If you're looking at bigger check sizes, they're actually, I would say, a more traditional bet on, we are observing a lot of our later stage companies. Carousel, for example, right? They're already in C or D rounds, raise a lot of money, doing well, practical business, bringing in income. But what they're starting to realize is, I think, as the two other panelists mentioned before, is how to leverage blockchain as a natural part of a new solution they want to implement. So those are companies where I would see if you're later stage investors, I would pay more attention to those. A lot of them, Korea has a lot of e-commerce players looking at how to incorporate blockchain to solve some of the pain points they have, right? One is scam accounts. How do they really aggregate like listings from even across from their competitors? Number two is how to eliminate a lot of the payments they still have to pay, visas and the credit cards, because they know they have the volume, and whether blockchain can be a great solution or not.
Brian, you want to add?
Sure. Not investing advice, but rather just kind of the methodology that we use. What we do is we look for equity investments in companies. Block One, we did a couple different initiatives. May seem a little old school, but we ran a hackathon series that went across the world this past year. We had about 2,000 people participate, and from there, those were opportunities that outside investors came. They saw those teams and also worked on making investments. So, I mean, blockchain is new. I mean, a lot of people talk about being around from 2013. These companies that are looking for investors are most likely starting within the past 18 months. So, the hackathons is like one way that we built a market for that place. We wanted to see who was building. We wanted to encourage them to build, and not necessarily looking to make investments in those companies. We do have a special program for them to receive investments, but rather they all met. And so, like, I met with a team yesterday that two teams from different events saw each other online from our videos we posted, and they are now building a great company. So the market is churning, I guess you'd say, but they're also looking for opportunities and teams that are just doing something. So I think it's really important to find teams that have that MVP coming up or have the opportunity where they're getting traction somewhere. We make equity investments, as I said, and that's the focus that these companies, we want to make sure they're around for the long haul. We do follow-on investments. That's just kind of been our focus since the start. It's done very well for us, and we're going to continue that way. And kind of harping back to what we were talking about earlier, what do we invest in and like that nature? I mentioned gaming, but I kind of wanted to make a point that resonates with everyone. Everyone here uses an airline. Most people flew in for this event, and you have the struggles and the frustrations of having your airline mile points and making sure that they get accredited to your account, and you're saving your ticket stubs and filing the claim online or mailing in papers and photos, and it's pretty laborious. In 2019, you'd think that we'd be a little further advanced instead of having to prove that you sat on a flight. I talked to a great team that were trying to work on an investment opportunity, and that they have worked to solve that problem and reinventing the way that tickets are awarding the points on the blockchain. It reduces the overhead costs. So as Bonnie was talking about, you have to identify the pain point and solve it. And so companies like that, if you're looking to make an investment, are great because that's something that people are going to buy. So when you're investing in equity, you want a company that's going to have year-over-year cash growth and go revenue and hit that magic number of growth. And so that's what we focus on. So I resonate, or I respond very well to the company talking about having solving a problem that I have on a regular basis and making sure you get those credits to those miles. And by solving that problem, it's a good opportunity. So removing the blockchain aspect from it, they're just fixing, making it more efficient and more streamlined. And that's something that is very entertaining to us.
So any other question from the crowd? I can go back and forth. Anyone who has a question, please raise your hand. Any entrepreneur who has a question? You have a lot of money in front of you. You don't want to have an exposure? Okay, your choice. Was a question? No, not yet. Okay, so you still have one last chance. So what I want to hear from four of you now, to kind of run it up a little bit, is kind of the top 3 advices that you want to give to blockchain entrepreneurs who are looking for money right now. Well, how should they prepare, not to pitch you this kind of bullshit thing that we always kind of give advice on, but what should they really, really think about in terms of preparing the company so that it's so attractive for you to invest into? Not the pitching, you know, this traditional stuff. What should they have achieved in order to you kind of say, I'm in your sweet spot? Who wants to start?
Yeah.
Please.
Yeah. So I think really, to me, I think it goes back to the traditional sort of investment philosophy. I mean, if an entrepreneur, a project team came to me, what I'm really looking for is, I mean, whether or not you have a clear business model, where's your customers are coming from, what's the problem you're trying to solve, and then how do you make revenue? And that's the basic 3 questions I'm going to ask you. If you can answer that question quite well, I think I'm very, very comfortable. I mean, in fact, I mean, the reason why I said that, you know, I think lots of the, if you are in the crypto industry, last year and the year before, you know, lots of the investors are basically invest into the projects without any business model. I mean, it's all about visions in 2 years and 3 years, and valuation of those projects really, you know, sky is the limit. But coming back into 2019, I think what really, you know, interests me is really those projects that can really help solve the real problems and having real revenue models.
But what revenue model I get, but how on earth can you get a business model out of all these companies? Do you mean that they should show that they are profitable at some stage?
Yes.
Like a business model in Excel? Or like what should they show? Like, should they show one customer that is profitable, or how should they do that business model?
Yeah, so I mean, normally I would look at what I really look at is the you know, the prototype. You know, whether or not if you are building a product, for example, trying to solve a problem, whether or not your product is feasible, whether there's real customers trying to use it, whether it's seed customers, or you have a, you know, a target group of customers that you want to go to, and then you show me what's your go-to-market strategy and, you know, your forecast of your revenue in the next 6 months or 12 months.
I mean, for me, probably the funniest thing still as an investor in crypto is we still get, you know, at least, you know, several a day business plans that are, you know, someone's raising a $20 million STO or ICO or whatever, team just formed, and it's just like, you know, delete, you know. Like, raise an appropriate amount of money. If you're just starting, you probably need like $1.5 to $3 million.
So reasonable amounts.
Well, raise an appropriate amount to get you to the next major level of development. It's called the typical VC cadence of raising money. Like, you don't need $20 million to build an MVP. I literally got one this morning I just deleted before watching this meeting. They're at $20 million STO, and they had a use of funds in it. The use of funds was $1 million. You know, and it's just kind of like, what are you talking about? This is insane. Like, you know, so you know, be appropriate to your cycle, have a product, get to revenue. You know, we do invest in some later stage stuff, and all of it has revenue. And it's, if you know, I mean, and it obviously there are some cases where we break those rules, but you know, most things we invest in, if it's a payment protocol or things like that, and then I haven't actually processed a transaction, it better be very low valuation, you know, sub 10. Then we'd be interested. If they have revenue, then we'd be a lot more flexible. That's interesting.
For us, it's quite simple, right? A lot of people would sometimes mistaken to think that, oh, seed investors, great, I have a concept. No, we don't invest in concepts. Show me something. If your team, I remember most of the teams we get excited to have a second discussion with is when they walked in and they actually have a setup to show us a demo. What exactly have they developed? Doesn't matter how fancy your paper is, or doesn't matter how fancy your team is, because we realized a lot of the teams, especially last year, as you said, were pulled together last minute. They literally went to universities and like fished out all these PhDs and say these are, but when you talk to the PhD, they're not really committed to the project. They're like, well, we're kind of an advisor. I met with the team 3 times. That's not enough. And the second part is, besides show us the product, is be ready to answer questions, right? Even though I may not be the right technical question to ask you about all your SGX related breakthroughs, I'm going to get someone to have a whole list of, DD questions. And I want the team to be able to, sit down with us for 90 minutes, go through one by one and answer all these questions. Versus for a period of time, we feel like when we do that, a lot of the teams kind of just disappear, right? Because they say, oh, we were able to close that $30 million, token. It's great. We don't need your money anymore. But we're like, it's okay. We're still interested in teams that understand what exactly are they building and can show us that they can achieve at least a prototype, how it works.
I agree with everything what everyone said. I would just point out a few things that we focus on, especially a lot of times teams, especially with blockchain, come to us with companies that they are either not solving a problem or they haven't identified the problem. They have a tool, then there's no real use for it. There's no customer, there's no market. That's been a big hurdle that we've tried to have to clear with teams, is actually identifying what the problem is and how they're going to solve it. And then you have to follow up with the question of, well, how are you going to make money doing that? If you're open sourcing your software and you're selling it, you're not going to make money, and we don't know how you're going to keep paying your bills. So that's part of the business model, and the business plan is identifying, solving your problem, how you're going to make money, and then how you're going to grow the business. If there's only 17 customers in the world available to you because you're selling to sovereign banks, then that's your total market. So I think identifying your total market is usually the first sheet we all see in pitch decks. I don't know how many times I've seen $400 trillion disruption, but you're not disrupting a $400 trillion business because you have to really get to your segment. So when you're identifying your total available market, that's pretty much the most important thing that people miss. And then also your revenue projections. Be reasonable. Undersell, because then I get more interested in it. If you're overselling it, I'm already diminishing your value. So if I see an opportunity and you're letting me believe that it's more valuable because you're playing it cool, I'm going to be more interested that you latch onto something good and you're not going to be shooting to the clouds. You're actually going to build and get to work. So I'd say the MVP is the most important. A lot of times we meet with teams that have already raised seed round, they're on Series A, let's say, and we're talking with them and we're asking, well, how's the progress going? And they're like, well, we're going to build a team now. And so we're wondering what happened with the first round of money. We would like to see something built by the time you're to Series A. So Series C definitely focus on getting to build something. You may not need to have thousands of customers, but definitely get to the point that you have actually started developing a product.
I think there were a couple of very interesting what not to do from this discussion. So I think hopefully you will remember that. So the people that you put on the team, make sure that they are really committed. Sounds very basic, right? Make sure that the use of funds is real, that you are actually asking for. So sounds like very school basic stuff, but it sounds also like some things are not really right in the pitches there from the very beginning. So what I would like to ask you for 2019, what would be like the one word, how you would summarize what you think 2019 will be like? One word, one single word, and why? And you can explain why for longer, but I would like to hear one word what 2019 will be like. I'll give you a little bit to think, and then you can start whoever wants to kick off. So one word and why?
Difficult.
And why?
I don't think the bear market is anywhere near over. I mean, maybe we're close to the bottom. That doesn't mean we're about to rise again. And the functionality in the crypto space is tiny. I mean, obviously, we're investors in Block One, and if you look at the entire landscape, there's something like 70 transactions a second. If you look at every protocol, Bitcoin, EOS is the biggest. Every single protocol combined is like 70 transactions a second. It's utterly nothing. There's no use. Private keys are a disaster. We're so far from having, Coins was a great example of, a company that kind of thought through things and whatnot that but there's so few of those.
So how long do you, Dave, if I may ask you then on the difficult side, you've been around as well as me for a while. We had the internet protocol. There it took a long time before, the market reshaped. Do you think it's going to be that long? Or how long do you think this market is going to be in what you say in the bear mood? Are we talking about quarters? Are we talking about years? Are we talking about decades?
I think we're definitely talking years. I don't think it's quarters. I have lots of crypto friends, obviously, and I'm bullish. I'm in this space. I'm not here because I'm bearish.
Yeah.
I would have left. I have other VC funds. But it's going to be like I don't believe that everyone that says, I think it's going to rise in June. Well, everyone thought it was going to rise end of 18. Everyone thought it was going to rise middle of 18. Before that, there's no functionality. There's no use. I mean, there's not none. There's just very, very little. There's some cool projects. There's some cool things. There's some great companies out there. I think Block One's one of them. We're still an investor. But it's such a tiny list. I think someone went through a blog post. This may not be accurate, but there's something like 40 projects out of 18,000 that have actual functionality.
Okay, that gives us a good view on it. Lee, Bonnie, or Brian, one word, 2019 why? Please, whoever. Bonnie.
For me, it's delivery. This is going to be the fun year because everybody who just keeps sending you papers are pretty much gone. So this year, I'm expecting to see a lot of projects where they're going to show me something.
Good.
And I love playing around with the actual text so that you can actually have more concrete conversations.
So in production, is that delivery? Okay, got it.
Yeah, my English is not that good, but the word I'm thinking about is tricky. I mean, the reason why I said it's tricky is because, I mean, of course, it's now in the bear market, but it's in the bear market for the secondary market trader, for those who really wanted to trade crypto. I mean, for us as an investor, especially early stage investor, I think it's even better for us because, like Bonnie said, and all those people keep sending you white paper are all gone. I mean, all those people are now still working in the field. Are those people are actually working? I mean, that we love to talk to those people because they are constantly having great ideas. They've been through different cycles. Now that we can really have time to sit down, have a proper talk, and talk about the ideas, how to iterate and how to pivot. How to build great products. Versus in the past, really sit down and shake hands and writing a check and that's it. So really, I mean, it's tricky because, like I said, there's opportunities out there still, and we are investing in this space not in the short term. We are looking at 5 years, 10 years term. So it's just a starting point for us, this 2019.
Sorry, Brian.
Sure. I'd say adoption. Going on what Bonnie and Lee said was that I'm hoping within the next few months there'll be apps, whether in which app store you're using, that are using software built on a blockchain. I'm much more focused on the blockchain aspect, the technology, the underlying infrastructure, not so much about the crypto and the trading. I want to see you actually build the software and use it. So I think that that's very close to, we're at the cusp of that being more of a mainstream adoption, and we keep pushing that charge. And I think very soon you're going to see a few more applications out there that have real use, real purpose, and you'll use them on a daily basis. I throw back the sentiment to 2007 when the App Store started on the iPhone. There was a lot of apps, that you had to get through a lot of different things that were developing overnight that really didn't have a purpose or a use. There was a lot of weather apps, you didn't really need them all, but you knew what the temperature was outside, and the focus is you had to get to the point. Like as I said, gaming was the next thing. So games took off in the App Store, and then it kept going from there, and the snowball effect happened. So I think we're trying to get to that cusp, and I think we're very quickly approaching that ledge, and hopefully it's a pretty steep climb from there for us.
Okay, so I would just like to summarize then. So we had DDTA. So it's difficult, delivery, tricky, and adoption. So can I have a big applause for Lee, Dave, Bonnie, and Brian? Thank you very much, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Design.